Amid the whispering prairies of southwest Kansas, there stood a humble cabin along the lonely stretch of the Osage Trail. But this was no ordinary way station. It belonged to a family whose hospitality cloaked a sinister purpose. This is the dark tale of the Bloody Benders. Welcome to Cinnamon Babe Horror Stories. Once upon a time, in the mid-1800s in Kansas in the Old West, there was a family of four. The husband, John Bender Sr., who looked repulsive and was age 60, and could not really speak English that well because he was a German immigrant. People called him Pa Bender. The wife, Elvira Bender, age 55. She also did not speak English that well, and she was known as Ma Bender. And she gained her nickname She-Devil because she had a very bad temper. And she was described as kind of looking like a witch, just like a scary looking older lady. Their son, John Jr., who was 25, he was described with auburn hair and a mustache, and he was described as handsome. But he was also described as weird because he was often laughing pretty much for no reason. And he spoke fluent English, but with a German accent. He was also described as like more sociable versus his parents. Their daughter Kate was 23, and she was described as very beautiful. She spoke English fluently with a German accent, and she was a self-proclaimed healer and psychic, and she would pass out flyers welcoming people to come for seances that she organized. She also claimed that she could cure illnesses and that she was Jesus Christ reincarnated. But she gained popularity because she believed in free love, in which basically sexuality knew no boundaries. Pretty much act on whatever sexual urges that you have. And she also advocated violence and murder. So in October of 1870, the Bender family settled in the isolated county of Labette, Kansas. And so there, the family opened up an inn called Bender's Inn, pretty much like a bed and breakfast. And it was about 160 acres. The cabin itself was not that big. They still had like their wagon attached to the back of it, like a makeshift room, which is freaking weird and not very like welcoming. Like I wouldn't really want to stay in a place that looked like that. Like pretty much like not too far from like looking like a shack. And this bed and breakfast was adjacent to the Osage Trail, and this trail was widely known for like robbers and thieves and just like criminals like robbing people along the trail. So people were already like feeling weird about the trail, and some people just avoided it altogether. But mind you, this trail was the only trail like that was leading to the west, so it was kind of hard to avoid if you were trying to head in that direction. So a part of the bed and breakfast, they opened up a general store, and on the outside they had an apple orchard and a vegetable garden. So basically settlers could come and stay overnight, get something to eat, get whatever like supplies they needed, and just keep moving forward seemingly. So here's when it gets weird. So John Jr. and his sister Kate are rumored to have had a sexual relationship that they were very public about. So I don't think it's that big of a rumor because they were very public and proud about it. And I'm going to read one of their quotes. "We confine ourselves to a single love and deny our natures, even though it be a brother's passions for his own sister. I say it should not be smothered." So yeah, they were very like public and proud of what they were doing, and I guess their parents just didn't care. It just kind of reminds me of Wrong Turn, like the weird family on Wrong Turn. Just inbreeding and just doing whatever feels good in the moment. It's just gross. So one day in May of 1871, a man named Jones' body was found in Drum Creek, and the nature of his body was very disturbing. The back of his skull was cracked, and it was like bashed in really bad, and his throat was slit. And from then on, many bodies were found in similar natures. Others became afraid, and by 1873, more and more missing person cases started to arise. Investigators had zero leads, and like I said, many travelers just started to avoid the Osage Trail because it already had a bad reputation. So in spring 1873, Dr. William Henry York had turned up missing. And so his brother, Ed York, went to go look for him. Ed York put together a search party of 50 men, and they started questioning like different homesteads along the Osage Trail, and one of the houses included the Bender's Inn. So March 28th, 1873 is the day that Ed came to the Bender's Inn and began to question the Bender family about the disappearance of his brother. At first, Ma Bender completely denied ever hearing or seeing of this guy, never knew him. And she also pretended that she couldn't speak English that well. And so Ed just continued to question the family. And then finally, Kate was like, okay, yes, he did come, but he only stayed a night and he left. So for the moment, Ed just accepted their answers and left for the day. But he did plan and intend on returning back to the Bender's Inn because he did feel it was suspicious. And also, Kate had offered to do a seance, and that kind of prompted him to return. But on April 3rd, a woman ran out of Bender's Inn screaming profusely because she was afraid. And upon questioning, she said that Ma Bender had threatened her with a knife. The news ended up reaching Ed, and he ended up returning back to the inn with 50 armed men. The crowd wanted to just hang the family on the spot. They had a strong feeling that they were guilty of these disappearances and of all these bodies that were turning up. But Ed advocated that we at least need to gather evidence first. So Ma Bender, she finally got pissed off and was like, okay, I chased her out with a knife because she was a witch and she cursed my coffee. And out of nowhere, her English got pretty good, out of nowhere. So that looked really suspicious because ma'am, I thought you couldn't speak English that well. What's going on? And then she got more pissed off, like I said, she-devil, and ordered all the men to get the hell out of her house. So respecting that they did not have enough evidence, all the men, including Ed, left for the day, but they all had a strong suspicion that everybody in that house was guilty. So during this time, many members of the Labette County community started to get arrested and questioned. And it's kind of stupid because it's like, if you guys felt like the Bender family was guilty, why were you going around to different houses and questioning people and arresting them? But mind you, you didn't arrest anybody from the Bender family. That makes no sense. Whatever. So eventually a town meeting was organized and 75 members of the community attended it, including Ed. Well, he's not a member of the community, but including John and John Jr., and a warrant was issued to basically search pretty much the entire area. But during this time, all the commotion that was going on with the searching and the random arrests, the Bender family was able to slip away unnoticed. So they literally made their escape and nobody even turned ahead because, like I said, they were so focused on arresting other people instead of focusing on the Bender family, in which that they felt was very suspicious. It's crazy. So this was 3 days after the meeting, the town meeting. A guy was passing the Bender Inn property, and he saw that it was clearly abandoned because there were farm animals that were left that were starving. And so he peeked inside the window and he could clearly see that there was clothes thrown around, and it looked like someone had just abruptly just packed their stuff and left. So the guy, he immediately notified the authorities, but because of the weather, authorities were unable to come out for several days, giving the Benders an even bigger head start. Finally, several days later, Ed and hundreds of volunteers came to search the property. And when they came inside, they saw that furniture was gone, clothing, possessions. It was pretty much empty and just messy. But along with the messy house, there was a foul odor coming from a trap door that was nailed shut on the floor. When the men opened up the floor, they could see it was an empty room, but it was filled with clotted blood. Again, the room was empty with blood staining the walls and the floor. And so the men started to basically probe and dig around the property to search for evidence of any dead bodies. And so they ended up reaching the vegetable garden, and that is where they found the body of Dr. York. And he was face down with his feet up that were barely buried. Like, he was very poorly buried. And he was found with the back of his skull crushed and his throat slit, similar to bodies that were found previously. The men continued to dig into the next morning, and they found up to 11 bodies total on the Bender property. Most of the bodies were, found in a similar manner: cracked skull, slit throat, except for one body, and it's so unfortunate. It was a baby, and from the looks of it, they said that the baby was unscarred, but you could tell the baby was either smothered or buried alive. And her father, he had the cracked skull and the slit throat, and they had gone missing some years prior. They were traveling along the Osage Trail, and they stayed at the inn and were never seen again. So at this point, the crowd is pissed off because, like I said, they found a baby. People are outraged. So they ended up finding and questioning a friend of the Benders, which his name was Brockman, and they hung him at the property, and then they would release him before he died, and then they would kind of revive him, and they just kept doing that over and over as a torture method to get answers out of him. But he didn't know anything, and so finally they just let him go after torturing him. So one of the possessions that they found in the house that ended up being proof of the murders from the Benders was a Roman Catholic prayer book, and inside there was words written in German, and I'm going to read them. I believe it's pronounced Joanna Bender, born July 30th, 1848. John Gebart came to America on July 1st, Big Slaughter Day, January 8th, and hell departed. So that's kind of a clue as to maybe a diary, or basically them a confession saying Big Murder Day, that was the day that they murdered a lot of people, or just whatever. So of course, naturally, this story became a huge media storm of that time, and 3,000 people, including out-of-state reporters, showed up to the Bender property and completely destroyed it. They picked it apart, they took bricks, completely dismantled the house, and took everything as souvenirs, which is so stupid because it's why do you want to have something like that in your house? Unless you're a historian and you're gonna put it in a museum. But as a regular person, why are you doing that? Why? And why did the authorities allow it? And I believe in a lot of cases from the old days that would happen. They would allow just the public to just come in and just take souvenirs. And there was one story a bunch of random people was stripping a tree until it died because someone was murdered under the tree. So they wanted pieces of the tree as souvenirs, and they kept stripping it until it died. And the authorities sat there and let them do it. And a lot of evidence was destroyed in the process, mind you. And I think the same thing could have happened with this story. So up to $3,000 was offered as a reward if someone was to point out the whereabouts of the Bender family, which back in that time that was worth $80,000 and would have completely changed somebody's life. But unfortunately, the Bender family had just had too much of a head start and was able to get away scot-free, and to this day no one knows where the hell they ended up or what happened. And also, historians believe that it was more than 11 victims. It at least had to have been 20 victims, but because of time passing, they just don't have enough proof. So there's a lot of different theories about what went on in the Bender Inn when these people were being murdered, and here's one of them. So it is believed that when a guest came to visit the Bender Inn, they would be welcome and seated at a special spot at the dinner table, and while they were eating their meal, Behind them there would be a curtain, and either John Sr. or John Jr. would be hiding behind the curtain with a hammer, and unsuspectedly they would come and literally bash the person upside their head, like cracking their skull. And then one of the women, either Ma Bender or Kate Bender, would come and slash their throat, and then they would open this trap door beneath them and literally release the body there. And then after that, I guess they probably would like wait till it was like nightfall and then bury the bodies like at night. That was pretty much like their routine whenever they felt like killing, or just whenever somebody came to visit their little raggedy inn. So some of the victims were wealthy, like the doctor, but it was said that most of the victims didn't have much to offer, and so it is believed that the Benders did this solely for thrill. Mind you, there were people that did escape because they fled before it escalated. There was one guy that was there, he noticed the blood stains on the curtains, which is crazy. Like, there had to be a lot of blood stains, so it's like, you're not going to, like, if I saw that, like, I'm literally making a U-turn. And apparently they wouldn't really stop you if you kind of like came and was like, oh, never mind, and left. But there was a guy who saw the blood stains and he refused to stay. There was one guy who was like sitting at the table and he refused to sit near the trap door area because it made him nervous. And he ended up just getting up and leaving. There was a guy who had a revolver and he saw one of the Benders like sneaking up with the hammer. And then like when he saw him, he like pulled the revolver out and the guy like kind of played it off like, oh, I was just fixing something. And also there's one thing to make a note of. Authorities noticed that in the roof there were bullet holes. So there were people that actually fought back. We don't know if they were successful or what, but like I said, there was a guy who had a revolver and was able to like escape in time. And you know, when the authorities came to the property, they noticed the horrible smell from the trap door. So that tells me that the Benders did a poor job of cleaning up the mess after they were done killing. And so it had to smell often when visitors came. So I feel like there was a lot of warning signs and people were just probably just too tired because they were traveling along that lonely trail and just really needed to stop somewhere. So they stayed anyway and just kind of ignored the red flags, which is really sad. So although there is not much evidence, there are different theories and rumors saying that the Benders had gotten away by train and that their wagon was found abandoned with the horses. And some people say that they fled to Mexico or Texas. Some people say that they fled back to Germany or to France, but nobody really knows because so much time has passed. Evidence gets destroyed along the way. So what do you think? I think that they got away. I don't think, some people believe that also that they got caught and was hanged and burned, or there was like vigilante justice, which was popular back in that time, the old West days. That's also possible. It's just I feel like there would be some type of evidence of that, like story of it. There's just not enough evidence. So I believe that they could have gotten vigilante justice and people were just quiet about it, because if it was official justice it would have been documented. Or they just got away, and unfortunately Kate and John probably continued to be weird and hopefully did not have any kids, because if so, that means somebody's a descendant of that disgusting family. Let me know down in the comments of what you think. I hope you enjoyed today's video. There's going to be a lot more coming up. This is a new channel that spun off from my vlogging channel, Cinnamon Babe Vlogs by Danielle. So this is just going to be separate. That way I can just focus on doing horror stories without anything, like any type of other like vlogs or videos distracting it. So please stay tuned for more. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. Bye.